Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Anyway, that's enough about welding safety. I am not an expert on the matter, obviously, and that's not what this video is about. What this video is about is my attempt to fully old school 1930s hot rod John Smokey from behind the shed with cinder block and some baling wire, welding up a mild steel exhaust using nothing but an oxy-acetylene rig and, again, baling wire, cinder block, some clamps, some magnets from the headers back for my 1983 BMW 320i, also known as an E21. Do I recommend doing it this way over MIG or TIG or whatever the kids are doing these days? Absolutely not, no. But I'm glad I tried it. I learned a lot and it was an adventure.
Did someone order a donut?
So what I'm gonna do is take this whole thing off and basically try to do a copycat of it in 2-inch pipe. Those three came out pretty easy. I was hoping to be able to slide the whole exhaust out from over the subframe and fuel tank hose forward, but I don't think that's gonna work without a lift, and all I have is my measly little auxiliary shop tools, which includes one of these horrible little jacks. So I think I'm gonna have to undo those crusty looking fuckers and pull it out from the back. Those bolts don't really feel like coming out, and since I only have my little Pittsburgh set, it's time to get the slicey snake. Now, before I do this, I'm going to mark it so that I know the rotational angle that it was at before I cut it. Okay, well, this thing got us most of the way there. And then, you know, sometimes you gotta grip it and twist it. This ought to be satisfying. Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Well, it looks like I'm gonna have to undo some more nuts and bolts anyway, because this doesn't really want to come out. Alrighty, so I've now tacked with just a couple spots the exhaust back together as it was on the car. The only thing I haven't figured out is how I want to re-engineer our connection to the collector end. Because I'm gas welding, I'm not comfortable welding under the car, which would be the easiest thing to do, would just be to cut the collectors at the, you know, an inch above the current flange and then weld a 2-bolt flange on. Of course, using V-bands is the way to go, but I'm just learning how to do this, so I'm doing the cheapest options. So as I'm starting to piece this together, I'm realizing I should have ordered a lot more bends, more of these and different kinds of them. I could have also looked under the car and realized I didn't really need any 90s, but you live and you learn. What I think I'm gonna do, this is perfect here, that's a perfect 45, but then what the stock exhaust does is like sort of another 45 here, and I have a 90 pipe, so I think what I'll do is cut the 90 pipe right in the middle that I can then butt weld a straight pipe to, zip to here, and then I'll use the other half of this to create this 45, and then it's straight from back. So that's all set, all set, all set, all set. This is all set, all set. But I need this like 22.5 degree kind of bend here. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do, but I think basically I'm gonna cut this pipe right there, and then I'll use what's left of it for this bend. That's the idea. All right. So it's starting to come together. All right, I decided to start with welding the flanges, which was a little bit demoralizing because that right there is like almost a 1/2 inch thick piece of metal, and this right here is 16 gauge steel. So I ended up using a number 2 tip, and I had to kind of point it straight down at the flange and heat the flange in sections, get it, you know, melty, and then try to pop the tip, the flame up like that to just catch the 16 gauge. I'm not a welder. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. It's really hard to find tutorials on welding with these, probably because it's not an ideal thing to weld with. Obviously you want to do MIG, TIG, or stick for exhaust. Anyway, I'm trying to keep it old school, do some hot rod stuff. One of the definite cons is that, I don't know if you can see on camera, but it puts so much heat in the flange that it kind of warps it a little bit, which probably won't be great for exhaust leaks, but nice thick squishy gasket and we should be all right. The first one I welded to the, you know, it's the expanded pipe, and so I had to weld it to the outside of the flange. It's obviously ugly. There were spots where I could actually weld it without any filler wire that are nice, and then the rest is all with wire. It was way easier to weld by pushing the tube up through the inside of the flange and then getting it, clamping it flush with the edge here, and then burning your clamp because you don't have the right tools. And then I ground it down so that it was flat so that the two would mate. But this was way easier. I still needed to use a number 2 tip, which is way too much for the thin tubing, but I needed to get this flange hot enough to actually, for the weld to actually, you know, happen and not just be like brazing the two pieces together. So here I'm doing an overlap weld. Again, I want to be doing butt welds because I found it easier, but this is easier than doing, you know, a bunch more cuts. It's kind of hard because you got to work quick enough not to burn the top pipe back. And it seemed to help to preheat the bottom pipe a little bit, but I'm doing sort of a classic like circular motion, dip, dip, dip as I go. And it definitely needs the wire because otherwise it just eats away at this stuff. I'm starting to get a little bit of consistency right here. I do think this aluminum tubing is making it a lot harder because when I welded on the straight piece of mild steel here without the coating, I was able to do way cleaner welds. One step further towards having an exhaust. Now, the most important thing about this video is that if anybody's watching this who is even 3 degrees of separation away from anyone who works at anywhere that packages and ships these, like Summit Racing or whatever where I got these, the stickers on the pipes are not possible to get off without leaving goo that you then have to either sand off or like rub with Goo Gone for a long time. It really slows down the process and would be very easily solved by laying just a layer of 3-inch thick painter's tape and then the sticker. All right, here's where we're at.
Over 1 month later.
We're gonna get back cracking on phase 2 of the exhaust build. Over here, I got this Jones turbine resonator and a Flowmaster little baby cat. Got some pretty sweet new kit. Now my biggest problem is trying to figure out how to attach here to the back of the collector. But I had an idea, which is I'll just steal this from the old pipe. Had to cut off the little flared end there. Hit this with the wire wheel, and then either flare my current pipe or weld this to my current pipe. So I thought this would come out a little fresher, but it's pretty ancient. So anyway, function retained. All right, so pie cut and then old ancient 1983 gasket, welded in, grinded down, and then block sanded so that it's all flat with, you know, flat with quotations around it. But these are all low spots now. So the outer ring is higher, which means that I should be able to get the gasket to seal.
Now what happens next is I Google welding stainless steel and I learn about something called hexavalent chromium. So Google that if you want to get scared. So what I did was I took it to the pros, hoping that they would have some ventilation and respiration stuff. They didn't, but well.
Alrighty, as it turns out, it's basically completely impossible without a lift and just two hands to like hold up these exhaust parts and figure out how to get them to mate and then mark not only where the hangers need to be welded, but at what angle they need to be welded and how long they need to be in that space. So you need 8 arms and 2 brains to be able to do that. So instead of extra arms, I have baling wire.
So here's where I'm at. That's sort of hooked up. It's kind of a sketchy connection, but this looks great.
And then unfortunately, the position that this is in and the clearancing here, by the way, is so tight. Like I have a 1/2 inch on every axis before this thing just sounds like this when you're driving. Look at how these line up. So this is kind of like really annoying. So I think what I'm gonna do is actually go to this section of pipe and just bend it. I have pressed the button. I'm going to get one of those little flex pipes and some U-clamps. And there's just one joint in the system that needs to be perfect, and I'm gonna make it flexible instead of perfect. You know, I actually have confidence in this situation. All right, so it's all here, which is exciting. My muffler is pointed too high. Be kind of cool to not see the exhaust and have it be like a kind of E38 like hidden exhaust situation, but it makes it a little too hard to hang because it's too close to the chassis. And I kind of like the classic pea shooter coming out. Little test fit. Perfect. And now I'm just tightening this absolute contraptizoid that I've invented. Which is perhaps not a classical method of exhaust hanging, nor one that would be approved by any sort of council of eldritch exhaust manufacturers. But honestly, the piece itself looks kind of cool. It looks like something off of a British car from the 70s. And I mean that in both the uplifting and the derogatory manner. And also it might allow me to have some kind of like screw adjustment of the left-right alignment of the exhaust, which would be really cool.
Here's another view of my contraptizoid number 1 and contraptizoid number 2.
Of course, now that I've tightened it up, it's banging against the axle again. I think Contraptozoid 3.0 may have done the trick, because we have not only perfect tip alignment, but also no clacking and a much more stable exhaust as well. The tension from both sides is just gorgeous. And we're not even, the clearance is unbelievably small, but we're not knocking the axle anymore. So now see, I've moved the clamps to be left and right oriented to improve on ground clearance. And then I also have done like dual clamp on both sides, and I figure they clamp a little differently top and bottom. So if I even that out, hopefully that'll work. That's what I want to see. Perfect. Super classic looking. It's kind of giving like a Volkswagen Bug feeling. All right, let's go check for leaks. All right. Yeah. But I think I fixed it. All right, we're in business. No clanking, no rubbing, just beautiful noise.
Hey, Peter, it's getting kind of steamy in here.
So I'm at the car wash, and I'm gonna call it on this project for now. I don't know if it's because I've been driving the Civic for too long, but the car feels faster than it used to. I don't know if that's true or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually did pick up like a horsepower or something from going to a modern high flow cat from the literal one from 1983, and going from like 1.5 inch to 2 inch maybe mattered. I'm not going to make any claims, but I will say that it feels like it kind of comes on to variable valve timing at $4,000, and it didn't used to feel like that. Obviously it doesn't have that, but just to give you an idea of how it feels on the butt dyno. Here we go. Woo! Right there, from 4,500 all the way to redline, it just like kicks in a way that I definitely didn't used to. Anyway, I'm in the car wash, obligatory roll the window down and give her a couple ribs. Gotta do it.
Let's get out of here.